Welcome to Small Talk with RainKraft. I'm Subha, a leadership and executive coach.
And I'm Hasita, a marketing strategist.
We're just two people who love to talk
and love to learn.
And this is us being curious about the world around us.
Join us.
Hey Hasita, did you get the memo? I hear we are wrapping up season 3 very soon.
Yeah, I got the memo. All right.
We're not quitting or anything, right? It's not the bad Q word, for God's sakes.
No, honestly, it's probably the good Q word, if anything. Quitting is such an underrated skill in life sometimes. It's not just, oh, hey, here's goodbye, never going to see you again. I told you over the last 20 odd episodes, I said, oh, Jesus, I'm so passionate about this. And now I'm saying, hey, guess what? I'm not. No, that's not what we're saying, right? I think sometimes the art of quitting is also the art of letting ourselves have other experiences for a while, so we can come back and do the things that we really want to be doing at any given point in time.
No, so true. I think for me, I do feel that for me to be able to do a good career podcast, I now need time to listen to a lot of other voices, right?
So
I
true.
now need time to read and listen to a lot of voices and see what do I really want to bring back to my show. That's important. You're so right. I don't know why quitting got such a bad rep. Even a lot of the stuff that happened during the pandemic, people weren't just quitting. I think it was...
behind every knee-jerk reaction is a non-knee-jerk process that has happened. I think sometimes we just don't pay attention to it. But these aren't things that happened overnight, for sure. People leaving jobs, moving things, even to some extent our decisions to do what we do this year, all of them were driven by a larger objective.
I was just thinking that we decided that, or we attributed it to our increased focus. Right? Like you said, you want to do marketing kind of work. I said I want to do coaching kind of work. But I think a large part of it maybe was also that I wanted to get away from some stuff.
And to be able to control something at the end of the day. Here's a part of my life that I spend, I think, 8-9 hours of my waking time doing this thing. Obviously, there is a kitchen and a soul component, and somewhere the kitchen tends to outweigh the soul for all of us to a large extent because, hey, we all have to eat. But then it's really become that too much of a good thing situation wherein it's taken over your life. And I was just telling somebody the other day, does it not seem strange to you in hindsight that these lockdowns were announced all over the world? And our immediate reaction was to then go and say, okay, how can I just continue working from tomorrow? Does that not seem so weird now?
Actually, I never thought of it that way. We all wanted to continue, we didn't want to give it up, right? We didn't think that we could give it up. It didn't occur to us.
And we had no idea that it was going to be such a long-term thing. We were just thinking, 1 week I'll work from home and then it'll all just be normal. So Tuesday afternoon I was at work. Wednesday morning, guess what? I'm just working on a Zoom call. And it just seems so cognitively dissonant in a way.
And Hasita, I'm just thinking that there, maybe because we didn't have the benefit of knowing that this would actually be a long drawn out pandemic. But you're right. Nobody said, hey, let's just kind of take a breather for these 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the lockdown. We actually tried to see how we can fit everything that was in our life before in some way or form into this new life. But interestingly, when the time came to unlock in a larger way, which is happening now, when you're saying, hey, come back to work, life's hunky-dory, everything's fine, come back to office, go back to in-person meetings, please commute from one end of the town to another for a 20-minute in-person meeting, right?
Yeah.
Now we are thinking twice. Because we're saying, hey, I don't have to jump back to what it was. I've seen the new life for an extended period and I've kind of seen the light that I can do the same thing differently. Right? And
also to an extent, the knee-jerk reactions, I think, causing knee-jerk regret as well. Because I'm not sure, in hindsight, I do see the value of some of the projects that we took up at that point in time, because we are in the business of being in business. It's only if we earn something that we put something on the table. So I do see how it kind of led to certain decisions even in my life in terms of choosing to do maybe some projects which A, I was not ready for probably, and B, culturally they were not a fit, right? And today I'm out of them, and I remember that the day that project ended, I felt such a profound sense of relief, literally. And if that's your first reaction to something, then where was that instinct while it was happening, right? So it's a combination of both. I mean, today we do have the conversation about people quitting jobs and a continued phase of the great resignation in a way. And then kind of living to regret some of those choices. I think one of the studies that we took a look at for this podcast, it says people are regretting and they're missing their work buddies and their colleagues, because the day they made their decision, they thought they will never see their work buddies and colleagues again. So,
and I was also reading today that more and more companies are seeing people also say that, hey, I lost my job when they're hiring and looking at resumes. It's also become much more acceptable to say that I got the pink slip, because I think we've
everybody is
some
getting
way,
it.
and we've some way evolved to really truly understand what is in our control and what's not. Right? I think the one thing the pandemic really showed us is that there is just so much which is way beyond your control. Don't even imagine for a moment that you are actually controlling your life or your day or
so true.
anything that is really happening to you, because a large part of it is not in your control. So now there's that acceptance. Hey, I got fired because the company didn't have any clients, because everything was shut down. That isn't my fault.
True.
So putting it out there doesn't make me less of a person in any way, right? This just
makes me human.
This is what happened to me. So I don't need to cover it up by saying I took a break and I did some consulting and whatever. I can just say that I was redundant because the company had zero sales or zero revenue or zero clients for that period and didn't need me. So I thought it was interesting that a lot of it really comes back to what can we control and what can we not, and hence what do you sit around worrying about. And you're right, so many of our decisions have been a bit knee-jerk. I don't think that I will get this opportunity again, or I don't want to miss it.
It's a very YOLO kind of situation wherein, I mean, we all thought we were going to die, so I think it's fair enough in terms of the choices we made then, and to just make peace with them now and know that there are things ahead of us. And I think one of the most underrated things in a context of work is also the whole idea of quitting something that you've outgrown or that's not working for you anymore, or probably it was never working for you in the first place. It's just that you had to do that at that point in time, but now that you don't have to, will you still hang around? Because we do that in so many areas of our work and life.
No, true. I think you're right. Quitting is underrated sometimes, or it's got too much of a bad rep. No, I mean, if you're not enjoying something, or if you've squeezed all the joy out of it, you've had the fun, there's nothing left there for you now, right? Then it's perfectly okay to walk away from
and I think I would
you signed up for, or for that extra volunteering activity that you're doing, or something that's taking up your time in the evenings, which is now a lot more precious to you. I think it's perfectly fine to say, I'm good, thanks, I had my run. And I've seen myself do it. I was giving a lot of time to a couple of organizations and groups, helping them with certain Zoom calls and with certain gatherings and setting up the group and the agenda and running the conversation. I've had my bit with that. I'm okay. Like, they are going to survive without me, and I'm definitely
so true. And I blame our childhood moral science classes for these things, wherein try until you succeed, and winners never quit. And oh God, like, please experience the joy of quitting from time to time. And like, the number of times I've given up on my gym membership and my swimming subscription are proof that there's joy.
You're bringing the gym and the water together. That's dangerous.
But then, Subha, I'm just curious, like, what would cause you to quit? What would be the thing that made you say, okay, I've kind of had my run here? Is it more of a pressure cooker, whistle blown kind of situation, or do you kind of come to that realization a little earlier? What's your approach?
In my conversations with people now, when I kind of share my journey, or I have to even just introduce myself, right? it's quite interesting, and each time I realize there's a nuance to the story that I myself tell, and it kind of emerges from deep within somewhere depending on the audience. But when I hear my story out loud, it's like, hey, I did this thing for 15 years, right? I was a banker, and I really genuinely enjoyed it. Like it was a thrilling ride. Thrilling, obviously, when you're looking back, and it had its really tough moments and ups and downs, etc. But on the whole, it was such a fantastic learning ground, one that's benefiting me even today. And it was a great set of people and great work. And then I quit.
Yeah.
Right? And when somebody gets a little curious and they say, why did you quit? I don't have one answer. I know that one was in terms of priorities, that I genuinely felt that two careers, husband and wife, it's tough, and someone had to take a deep breath at that point for the sake of the kids. It was important to us. It was a priority, right? So that was one. But it was not one that would have forced me to quit like I did. I could have always looked for something lighter, something more flexible. The same organization would have done that for me, etc. And then I think about the second reason is I just plain got bored. For me, scene has to change every couple of years, and I didn't see the prospect of that happening for many reasons. And so I didn't want to be further the expert in what I was doing then. I've done it for 15 years. It's not in my bucket list to do this for another 10. It's not adding up somehow. So that's the only word. It was just boredom, that I was in that space for too long and I needed to experience other things and other people. And that boredom led to a sort of predictability that, and I hear it from a lot of coaches I meet who've been in the same organization for a significant number of years, that you start getting used to each other, right? Who's going to say what, whose email will say what, and I know what I'll reply, and then I'll know what they'll say after that, and then I know we'll meet for a cup of coffee and sort it out. So that was another. And I think thirdly, somewhere this feeling that, hey, there must be so much more out there. Right? If I say no to this, then I can probably say yes to so many other things. At that time, it was very idealistic, right? I'll say yes to the gym, and I'll say yes to daytime walks, and yes.
But not the water, I noticed.
Never. I'll say yes to long daytime walks and cafes with books and whatnot, right? So, I mean, that's not how it panned out. I jumped into more work, but very different kind of work, completely different kind of people. So I did jump into a lot of new exciting work, and I remember days when I would call back home or come back home and say, I was like sitting in an agency office today, or I was sitting at the printers today, or I was sitting at a graphic designer's shop today. Places I would have never been otherwise.
So true.
And so that there was that excitement, and continues to be the newness of meeting different things. But I think I had to quit what I was doing. I had to say no to a lot of things to be able to say yes to a lot of things. So I think really quitting it's got a very bad rep. If you know, and if it's your decision, and even if it's not, right, like what we just spoke about, it's not in your control sometimes, but it can be, it can open up something new for you.
It's also, I mean, it's completely contextual to the individual in question, because on LinkedIn these days, when we see posts about being laid off, there are those who are looking for something to start immediately, and that's completely reasonable because we all have to put food on the table. And then there are also those who are saying, okay, now that this whole upheaval has happened over the last 2 years, 3 years, let me just take a break and kind of evaluate what is it that I want, this whole situation, and take a bit of downtime and kind of restart. And that's where I find that the whole agency setup, or maybe kind of being employed by yourself situation, is a little more flexible on that front, because I mean, while we tell clients give us a 1 month notice, literally they just like, it's usually over in a matter of weeks, right? Like the severance is pretty sudden, right? And sometimes even we do that. It's not just that the client has left for XYZ reasons. Even we say, okay, this is enough of a toxic environment, because either it's impacting me, or it's impacting my people, or it's impacting both. Where I think for me, the challenge has always been to decide when that point of no return happens. Because at a systemic level now, what I may find bearable may not be bearable for somebody else in the system. And at the same time, somebody else may demonstrate a certain amount of maturity about something which I cannot see that way as well.
Yeah. No, very true. I think even I remember in my corporate avatar also, I did have that bit of at least ability to think about whether I should say no to something for the sake of the team, right? Because clients can be very demanding, and for various reasons, right? Nobody wakes up saying I want to be a demanding client, right? It's just that's their need in that moment, and that's what they need. But I used to tell my team and even stakeholders that I'm not going to take on something that stresses all of us out, not because we are delivering something better, but taking it on because of a client's inefficiency or a client's attitude, right? Where they're trying to push something onto us because they don't want to do it.
Right?
Yeah. I'm completely okay to take it on because doing that gives our work output, it takes it up several notches, or it helps us try out something new, and maybe we're onto something and we can perfect that, or we need to do it because we need to cover for gaps in our own system. But never take on something because of a client's inefficiency or unwillingness to do something.
I think that nuance has to be differentiated. You're absolutely right, because I think a lot of consulting work, oh my God, I'm going to hell for saying this. We get that work because the client is inefficient. We wouldn't get it otherwise. Can we please cut this out of the final recording? But I think that nuance is important. What you said about, is the client unwilling to put in the work, or is the client unwilling or incapable of putting in the work? Now, those two things are very different, right? Like a lack of willingness is a problem for sure. And I think in my experience also, I mean, while I do want to do exciting work and new things, and I want to obviously see the world while doing it, a lot of clients sometimes have this idea that from the moment a proposal is sent, your time belongs to them. And therefore, please get on as many calls as possible. And we want to solve XYZ problems even before we sign you on for anything. Because obviously you have to demonstrate your value to the system. Previously, I used to kind of fall for those things. But now I see that it's just not feasible. I mean, much as I would like to, I mean, there's nothing I love. My problems are like catnip to my brain. I would gladly sit and discuss them for hours, but it's not in service of a system. And when you are a system, you have to think about the greater good.
Correct. And it's unfair to your teams, right? You create a culture where they're doing stuff that is not really their job description or is not adding value to them. Once in a while is fine, but when you're making them do it over and over again, and everything is in the name of the client, and everything is like client wants it and hence we have to, etc., it becomes a bit toxic after a point, and you lose control of the whole show, I feel.
So true.
Right? So I think it is important to say no or to exit. Like Brené Brown, I think her favorite, is it a whole body yes?
Yes.
Then it's a no. It's very clearly a no. Maybe I'm sure I know that it's not so black and white always. And it's a half body yes.
But my left arm says no. So let's just make peace with that and move on with the right arm. But
Correct. But I think things to bear in mind that we don't have to call it this, give it this very ominous sounding.
Quit. Oh my God. Genuinely unnecessary.
You made a choice. We all have choices. You made a choice. And so hat tip to you for making that choice and exercising that option, honestly.
And frankly, just taking the responsibility of the consequences that come with these choices. They're not always easy, right? So I think just the fact that someone's hung around for the outcomes, I find that to be far more something worth respecting.
On that note of saying no to something for a while and saying yes to something else, I think we should let our listeners know that we are going to take a little bit of a break to recharge, refresh, and really think about what we want to bring into next season, because we want to make it as meaningful and meaty and impactful as possible. I think we're on the right track, Hasita. I think season 3 has been wonderful in terms of looking at different people, meeting them, having wonderful conversations, listening about their journeys and how their career has panned out, and our conversations on what can make us better at the work we do and how we live our lives and how we bring the two together, because now there is no balance.
Work life.
one big bubble.
Yeah.
Right.
So true.
So I'm really looking forward to a bit of thinking time for both of us and coming back.
And I think we should give ourselves a pat on the back. We've done this for 5 months, which is the better part of the year. And prep, of course, has taken a bit more time even before then. And frankly, the level of intentionality that we brought into season 3 is something that I think we'll both be so immensely proud of many, many years down the line. And of course, this is not a permanent goodbye. God knows we love podcasts too much to stay away from them for too long. But I think it's an opportunity for us to go out there and experience the world a bit more and come back with more, I suppose.
And thank you for being a delightful co-host, and we shall be back to banter and laugh together very soon, folks. Very soon. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, small talkers. Thank you for listening till the very end. We love bringing these episodes to you, and we hope you enjoy them too. Please do drop in your comments, likes, shares, reviews, whatever you can do on the platform that you're on to help us reach a larger and larger audience. And that would really make our day. You can find out more about today's guest or today's episode in the show notes. All the details and how you can find us on social media is right there. Thank you and see you next time. Bye.